excited to have Gabs on the podcast. Before we hopped on, I literally was talking about the fact, I know this is going to be on video, the fact that Gabi looks like a fucking supermodel. And I basically just took a contour brush and like put it all over my face so I had some color on my face. Because we're recording this at the beginning of January. So happy New Year's, Gabs. What are your New Year's resolutions? What's on the docket for 2025?
I don't really do resolutions. I do more like words, like themes for my year. And my theme for this year is uncomfortable, doing things that make me very uncomfortable because I know I have to in order to get to where I want to be.
I like that. I feel like you messaged me about being on the pod. I don't have a word yet. I'm kind of like energy. I just feel like there's an energy of the New Year's. There's not like a word or resolutions or goals. I'm just like ready to go. But I remember you like messaged me the other week. You're like, I need to be on your podcast. Like I'm not on a lot of podcasts. Did you tell me, am I like fucking making this up, that you said like you're not comfortable like speaking or did I make this up? Or is that like—
No, I mean, I like speaking last year was a new thing for me, like speaking on podcasts, speaking in person, that's all new to me. So I'm just trying to reach out more to put myself, like I said, in uncomfortable situations where someone can ask you anything in the moment and you have to answer it, you know? So this is like just going on to that.
Okay, I find that very weird. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. When I first met Gabi, we'll get into probably throughout this episode, like how we met. When I first met Gabi, I was like, this bitch, one, very intimidating, because Gabi is beautiful and kind. She has a very successful business we're gonna talk about in this episode. But I would assume that you like don't get uncomfortable very often and that you're very confident in what you do. But as I've gotten to know you, I feel like there's a lot more to that. So like, do you consider yourself a confident person, or like, where are you on that scale?
It depends on the topic and the setting, I find. Like when it comes to anything on like the personal side of me, totally like that's where what you've just described is what you'll see often. But it's actually on the business side that I'm the least confident in. And I've been admitting that more as of last year. And that's really helped me get through it too. And I think for me, it stems from being in the industry for so long and just comparing myself to those who like came like, you know, later and just seeing where they are. And I'm like, fuck, like I've been in this for like 11 years and I'm still here. But I know that's not like a good mindset to have, but I think that's really where it stems from. And just like for me, just like again, from my past and stuff, just seeing the potential of what's out there nowadays versus back then, like when with our parents and everything like that, it's scary. It's scary as fuck. And I'm just like, I want it, but I don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole, you know? So it's a very weird thing to me.
Yeah. Can you talk about starting your business? For anyone who does not know Gabi, I don't really do introductions on the pod. I just kind of let you guys put together pieces as we go. Like, what the fuck does this person do? Gabi is, when I say I was intimidated by Gabi, I'm not lying. That is not to say that. I said that, I think, to your face the first time.
Yeah, you have.
Gabi has a very successful business. She runs an agency. And the thing that's really cool about Gabi in comparison to a lot of agency owners that I know is you kind of do it all, but in a very effective way. I think a lot of people try to do it all because they think that there's more money in that, or they think that then it makes them more appealing to their ideal clients. You guys have just, I think, become that, but I don't know if that's true. I just feel like that's what I've seen. And when you talk about your clients, you're like, well, we ended up doing this and we ended up like literally you can hire Gabi and she'll like come and paint your toenails. Like that's what her agency does. Like they'll give you a haircut. Like, I don't know. I feel like you're—
I love that that's what you pick up from what you've seen. Like hearing it from someone who hasn't like directly worked with us, but like that's what you see through peers, through the online. Like that's exactly what we want to be known for. Yeah, no, and I love that. So the best way to describe what we do is we're like an all-inclusive resort for online businesses. And I structured that on purpose because we found that a lot of people were hiring many different contractors, teams to do various things. And so we kind of made it where you just come to us with all your problems and we'll solve it all at once, you know, not at all at once, but all under one roof. And I think what makes that so much easier is that you're coordinating with less people, managing less different structures and all that stuff. So we wanted to make it really easy to come to us with all your problems, basically. We almost do it all, almost. There's certain things that we don't do, but like it's a really small percentage of things. But yeah, I found that was just a lot easier for business owners instead of having to go to many different people. And, you know, as you work with someone, you build that trust, you build that relationship. And so the longer that we worked with people, the more that people added services to their package, which obviously just made it so seamless and easier for them to just continue to let go and let go. So yeah, that's how we structured it. And I think that really stemmed from me being a multifaceted person in itself. And then also when I was a freelancer, I was doing many things too. So I really wanted to keep some of that root of like who I am into the company. And so I'm really happy to see that like that's what we've done over the last 4 years.
All inclusive resort. I love that. I don't know if it's in your marketing, little marketing thought, but it really needs to be because I think that is what you guys do. You have a very luxury experience,
Mm-hmm.
but it is an all-in-one experience if you want it. I think that that's really cool, and you do it very well because again, a lot of people get kind of lost in that when they
Yeah.
try to do too much. It becomes a little too wide, but you guys are very good at that. Did you
Thank
start
you.
that way, or did it just become that? Like,
Yeah, no, it always started that way. My background when I was a freelancer before we became an agency. So I've been in this for 11 years. I started as a freelancer, and then as of 4 years ago, we became the agency that we are. But I always dabbled into a few different things. So it was like virtual assisting, it was social media management, it was photography, videography, like all, I was doing a bunch of things. At the same time, I was a personal trainer and makeup artist. So, like literally when I say multifaceted, I was multifaceted.
yeah,
And so then when we started the agency, I took all the main things that I enjoyed doing and started hiring out other experts who could help with those services. So we always had like at least, two different buckets, I would say. And then they just became more and more buckets and like mini buckets below certain umbrellas. So yeah, we were always been that way. I've always been a very anti-niche girl. Literally since day one, back when everyone was saying niche down, I was like, no, I literally cannot. So yeah, it's always been that way. And I don't see us ever changing. It's just kind of what makes us us.
I love that. How early did you hire? Quickly?
Literally within my first 2 months of becoming an agency.
Holy shit. Okay, so
Yeah.
how long after starting freelancing did you start the agency?
So I had been freelancing, well, I don't know math now, but so I've been doing it for 11 years
Mhm.
and I became the agency in 2020. So
Okay.
I don't know, I was like a freelancer for like 7 years, I'd say, or something like that.
Yeah.
Whatever the math is. So I'd been doing it for a really, really long time. I actually contemplated stopping like virtual assisting, social media management, altogether before I became an agency. So I did fully quit it that same year. So earlier in that year, I quit it and I was like, I'm gonna be a fitness coach. I'm gonna go
Mhm.
all in on that. Did that for the summer. And then I was like, actually, no, like I enjoy what I was doing. And then I
Mhm.
started it back up. And then I was like, you know what? Like, I want to do something different. And like, I figured out what I didn't like and what made me say, like, okay, I don't want to do it. And that was because I just didn't have enough time in the day to continue to help more people. And so I was like, okay, why don't you just try to hire? So I decided to hire when I became the agency. And yeah, we hired within the first like 2 months of becoming an agency. And we scaled to a team of four within like 4 months. So it was pretty crazy.
Damn girl, guys, when I say Gabby, like she's like you can just tell from the way you answer questions, you're like, we did this and we did this, we did this. You're like very much a high achieving individual.
Thank
And I know
you.
you already mentioned you did the fitness coach, you did so much shit. Like
Yeah.
you and Gabby's Instagram, you're like, oh, so she runs 85 different things. Can you talk a little bit more though? When you actually quit ish,
Yeah.
quit in 2020, was it burnout? Was it lack of clarity? Like, where was the decision that said, like, maybe I'd get rid of this
I
before you
think it was a lot of things, to be honest with you. I think when I had first started freelancing, I mean, I was not 18. I was just finishing college. And so I was like, oh, okay. Like I got exposed to social media management and I never really thought about like, what is my career? What is my long-term goal? How is I going to do things or anything like that? Right. So I think for me, for as long as I was doing it, I didn't really think of like, what am I really doing and how am I going to make this something that I can do when I'm 30, when I'm 40, like I didn't really plan it out. I was just kind of doing it because the opportunity was there. And
Yeah.
so because I didn't put any structures in place, I didn't really plan anything out. I didn't know what I was even going into. That's what led me to definitely the burnout and like lack of clarity and just also like not sure if that's what I really wanted to do for another 5, 10 years. And so
Yeah.
I think that was a point that I had to hit in order to really take this seriously. Like I always joke about like how I took it as like, okay, this is my actual career. I
Mhm.
think we don't really say that out loud. Sometimes when we start a business, we're like, oh yeah, I'm just going to start a business. But it's like, do you really think about like, is this something that you can sustain for 5, 10 years? And I know we hate that question of, what do you see yourself doing in like 5, 10 years? But truly that's something that we have to start thinking about, especially as I got older. Like I said, I started when I was 18, but as I got into like being 25, I was like, okay, I need to start thinking about getting married, having kids, and my parents getting older. Like you have to start thinking of those things. So I think truly just at that time in 2020, that was when I was starting to ask all those like real life questions. And so, yes, it was burnout. Yes, it was lack of clarity, but it was also like, what do I really want to do with my life? Because I'm 25 and I need to figure it out like kind of now as to what direction I want to go. And I mean, you can always shift and pivot in life, of course, but like just at that given time, you're just really wondering like, how am I going to sustain 12 to 15-hour work days for another 10 years? Like that's just not possible.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of where my mind was at the time. And I thought that fitness coaching was going to be significantly better. But as much as fitness fitness is a part of my life significantly. It just wasn't something that I saw myself doing until I was like 45 or more, you know?
Yeah. Wait, so you started freelancing. I was just thinking about this at 18. You went to school. Did
Yeah.
you ever work for like a corporate job or you went straight into freelancing and
So
that was
I skipped that. So yeah, I did work corporate for a year, and that's where I got the social media management job. I'm also an influencer, and so that's where the social media management came. So I was one of their athletes for a supplement company, and they needed a social media manager, and they're like, "Oh, we see what you're doing with your personal Instagram. Like, how would you like to try social media management?" And I was like, "Sure." Like, I
Oh.
didn't know what that was.
Mhm.
They're like, "It's basically kind of like what you're doing with your own personal brand." I'm like, "All right." So I just kind of took that, and I did that for about a year. Really grateful for it because it definitely gave me the experience that I needed, but I hated who I worked for. I did not align with who he was, what he was doing. And I was like, fuck this. Like, I'm going to go do it on my own. And so that's when I started freelancing. But obviously, it wasn't enough right off the get go. Like, so I had to fill it in with other things. So I was doing personal training and I was doing makeup artistry as well, and then some videography and photography. So I was definitely dabbling my hands in all the different places to kind of make my full income. And then
Mhm.
eventually over time, I was able to do it full time. And again, the fitness industry is what really got me to where I am today, just because a lot of people at the time needed social media managers for that. So yeah, that's kind of where it all stemmed from. And yeah, and then I just, like I said, got into the admin part, got into the video editing, and all the things. And yeah.
Yeah. Holy shit. Okay, that's really interesting because when you were talking originally, I'm like, wait, did she never work for a corporate job?
Yeah.
I was gonna talk about that a little bit. Like you really went off on your own very young, and I think more and
Mhm.
more people are doing that.
Yeah.
I'm seeing that. Like that was not a topic of conversation when I was in college. I know we have a
Yeah.
couple, not that many, but we do have a couple years between us. So you're in corporate, then you go off on your own. As far as like your thought process, it
Mhm.
sounds like you did what you wanted to do, but also the ability to make money was a huge factor. What would you tell people who are balancing like the choosing your passion, but also being able to pay your bills? Because I feel like you balance that kind of well. Like if you look back, do you feel like you did
Yeah.
a good job of balancing both?
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea what I was doing, to be honest. Like, I'm the first one to like do my own business in my immediate family. So my family definitely thought I was crazy because I was working corporate, had good benefits. I was working from home, even though it was for a corporation. Like, I had a really good gig considering I was only 18. But I don't know. For me, I was just like, yeah, I did. It didn't feel good to be working for that person, and so I was okay. So how do you keep yourself happy, but also, yeah, pay your bills? And yeah, I think I balance it pretty well in a sense that like there's a certain phase when you're doing this transition where you're going to have to do things that you don't truly want to do because you need to make the money. Like that's just inevitable. I think people think that like a lot of us just like quit with like nothing and then just like make something out of it. And that does work for some people. I'm not saying it doesn't, but sometimes literally there's also life. There's your bills, there's your livelihood, there's those that you have to support, and like sometimes you do have to supplement that in the meantime. And so that's just a reality that I knew I had to do in order to get to where I wanted to go. So I just saw it as like a stepping stone to be able to go full time into my freelancing. So I do
Mhm.
think that it's important to consider that if you do have certain responsibilities, sometimes you can't fully just quit your job and go right into what you want to do. And sometimes you have to do an in between, but then you'll hit another phase where it's like you can't do the in between and you have to fully just let go. But you'll have already saved and kind of like, giving yourself a little bit of cushion to do so. So you do have to be responsible in this as well. If you don't have, much of a backup or much of other support, should something happen to your livelihood or anything like that. So you do have to be responsible in that decision too.
Yeah. Well, I'm really impressed with the way that you were able to like analyze that at such a young age. I think sometimes people think that you can just immediately go into what you want to do. And I think there's always a balance. I don't
Yeah.
think you have to be miserable, but there's a little bit of that, like get your, some skin in the game. Let's figure some
Mhm.
stuff out, hustle a little bit. Maybe 20% of what you do is what you love, but then the other
Yeah.
80% is to also give you that flexibility to build, some income and build some wealth so that eventually maybe you can take bigger risks. And I think you did a nice job of balancing the risk and the joy of the job.
Mhm.
I don't know if those
Yeah.
would be the two words that I would choose, but you did that a lot. And then you started an agency at what, like 27, 26,
Well,
25?
I'm 29 now. So 4 years ago, that's like what, 20, 25.
Very young, very
Yeah.
young. Started an agency. did you always, like, when you decided that you were going to then add a team, was it agency because you felt like that was the easiest way to scale? Did you want to run an agency? Because I feel like
I
the
honestly
way
just wanted to hire. I wasn't
you
really
were the
like, "Oh, I'm
same
gonna." I
people.
honestly didn't even know the difference between an agency and just having a team. Like, for me, I'm just like, an agency is multiple people. I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's my perception of agency, is just that you have a team, but,
Yeah.
like, anybody that has a team could essentially call themselves an agency realistically.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of what I was going into, but I think that it would be as big as it is now? Like, no.
Yeah.
I definitely want to keep it boutique style. So like no more than 15 of us maximum, because I think that's a whole other thing in itself is people don't realize what it's like to manage people, like it's a lot. That's probably the biggest shock of me entering the agency world
Mm,
was how difficult it is to be a leader, but then also to manage a team, their
yeah.
needs and their happiness, but also yours and the businesses. Like it's a lot. It's a lot. And I would say that's probably the most challenging than anything else that has been thrown my way as an agency.
Yeah, you talk very intentionally about your team. So Gabby and I were actually at a retreat 3 months ago, 4 months ago. It feels like a year ago.
September?
It feels like a week ago. I don't
Yeah.
fucking know. We were at a retreat at the mid part of this year, and we also happened to do some like consulting, coaching stuff together this summer. And I got to know Gabby really well. And every fucking time she talks about wanting to improve the business, you always talk about the team.
Mhm.
So can you talk about the beginning start of hiring a team? Because you've had mostly the same people this entire
Yeah.
time, or you haven't really had turnover. What did you do wrong in the beginning? Did you do anything wrong? Do you look back and say, what the fuck was I thinking? What challenge did you have? Because agencies and team can make or break a business. And for you,
Absolutely.
it made your business. So like,
Yeah.
how the fuck did you do that? You were young, you didn't have a lot of team experience, it sounds like,
Yeah.
and you grew exceptionally fast. So give us the skinny. Like, I need to know this.
I mean, I think I've definitely had some turnover over the last 4 years, and I've definitely made mistakes for sure. But I'm very, very grateful that a lot of our original team members are still here today. Like, I am so, so grateful for that because that's not common. And so I think what I did from the beginning was always caring about the people that I hired. I
Yeah.
think when people hire, they don't really, I don't say they don't care for the people, but they don't really get to know the people.
Yeah.
I feel that a lot of CEOs feel this hierarchy that I'm giving you a job. So why should I get to know you, or why should I invest time in you on like a personal front? You know what I mean? Like I feel like everyone's goes straight to the business side of like, how are you going to help me generate more money? And like that was never the way that I've entered any relationships in my life of like, what are you going to do for me? It's kind of like, what are we going to do for each other? But also like, I just genuinely wanted to know the people that were going to work for my company. Like I want to know your dog's name. I want to know your spouse's name. You know what I mean? Like I want to know those things. And so I think by genuinely getting to know people versus like just their skill sets and just, their career goals definitely was like a good thing to have done in the beginning. I think too, because I was so new to everything, I didn't, like you said, I didn't really know much. So I definitely involved a lot of the team on like opinions of like, where do we want to go? What do we want to do? What do we like? What don't we like? And so I think that allowed everyone to feel very invested in the vision that we were building early on in the days. And even now, we had a whole month about things about like what we want to do for 2025. And I think that's a very unique thing to like incorporate your team so much and like the opinions of what we're going to do, which is, a thing in itself that's really difficult to balance. But I think that's another one. But I think out of all the things that have happened in the last 4 years in regards to hiring, in regards to the not so great experiences that I've had and the unfortunate times that we've had, I think it's making sure that, and I know it sounds so like you've heard this before, but truly making sure that the people that you hire really care about you and your business is like really, really important and align with the way that you show up for work as well and your business in itself. And I mean that in a way of like the way that you would answer a client, the way that you would deal with a situation, is that how that person would as well? Like the way that you would react to situations, is that the same way that that person would do it as well? And that's not in a skill set way. So I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of people focus on is like the skill sets, the skill sets, the skill sets. But it's like, no, who is this person? Like, how are they going to represent you outside of the skill sets? And I think that's a very important thing for people to consider when they're hiring is like, who is that person as a whole versus, what skills do they bring to the table?
Yeah, but I think that's why a lot of people don't hire a team. Like it's we
Mhm.
hear it all the time in business. No one can do it as well as me. No one can do as well as me. Like, they can't replicate me. Like I can do it just better. Like I'll
Yeah.
find time. Like we know that's the excuse a lot of business owners make. And sometimes I think that can be the case,
Yeah.
but I don't feel like that was the case for you. I feel like you figured out this magical something to kind of create mini Gabbies. And it's not that they don't have their own flair and spin and do things their own way. They're not like exact replicas, but they have met your standard of the way that you support your clients and the way that they make decisions. How did you pick those people, and then how did you train them to be you? Like how did you create that standard, and how did you make sure that you were training people to that standard?
I think I just really thought about the way that I was doing it, and like I put them through in the interview process. We do like a trial project. So basically what they would typically do if they were hired. And so that was a really good way to for me to see how they apply their skills to like what we would actually do with the client. So that's been very, very helpful. But honestly, my team is better than me at a lot of the things that we do today. Like I know I still bring my own like, specialty and all that stuff, but honestly, like they all are significantly better than me now. And I think that's a very important thing to do when you're hiring too, is like, do you see that person not only, being a replication of you, but also do you see them actually excelling even more because they can double down on that specific area? You know what I mean? Like, yes,
Yeah.
I can do the graphic design. I maybe can do copy if I absolutely had to. I can do the ClickUp build outs. Like I can do all that, but I also know that the team members on my team can do it 10 times better than me because that's all they have to focus on, where I'm trying to think of so many other things, right? So I think that's really where I was thinking when, I was kind of like having everyone go into their departments and really grow into their roles as well. Is just, yeah, just seeing how they can also bring their expertise and make it a little bit better than what you had originally when it was just you.
Yeah. Well, it's really smart that you think that way as well, because I do think you should be hiring people who have skill sets beyond what you are
Hmm.
bringing to the table. So it sounds like you've hired people very well. You train them very well. Are there any things that you do now with your team, like for people who are like, I want to have a big team. I really want to be, someone who my team like really feels connected to. They see
Yeah.
my vision. They're bought into my vision, but they also know how to bring their expertise to the table. Like they see what you have built and they want that. Is there anything that you would recommend that people do from like the offset, or people should start doing, that have really been impactful for the culture that you've created?
Yeah, I think some of the really cool things that we've done literally from the beginning is one-on-ones. One-on-ones not just focus on their work performance, but like I said, their personal goals and their personal life as well. So our one-on-ones are quite lengthy because we're talking about both sides basically. But I think that's been very important for me because what was happening for a little bit is you'd see certain work performance and you wouldn't really understand why it was like that. But when you further understood what was going on in their personal life, you can kind of connect the two. And as
Mm-hmm.
much as we try to separate them, sometimes they do, kind of domino onto each other. But that was really helpful for me to really fully understand like where everyone's personal life was as well. And that allowed them to really connect with me and be very vulnerable with me as well too. So that if they were having an off day or if they were having a really good day, I kind of knew why. And I think that was very important to like be able to know like how are you going to support your team when they need you the most. So I think that's a really important one that we've incorporated. Number two, we do our happy hours every single month. So even though we are a fully virtual team, we make sure that we have a dedicated day of every month where we just have fun. We just get to know each other. Everyone takes turn hosting. So you get to know everyone's, personality and everything like that. So that's been a really good one for cultivating our culture. And then I think number three is just open communication. And that is like so true in our company, that like open communication, like the door is always open to communicate whatever it is that's on your mind. And it's a really safe place to do that. And I just, again, going back to what I was saying in the beginning, like I think because I genuinely care about my team, that's allowed them to be so open and share what they're feeling, whether that's something that they want to improve, something that they like, something that they want to address, right? And I think it's up to you as the leader to allow that invitation to your team, because you don't want people kind of like behind the scenes feeling or thinking certain things. Like that's not going to help you to be able to improve and to know how you can do better, but that's also not going to help your team because then they're going to eventually just leave. And so I think that everyone focuses so much on like how can I make my team better on in regards to their skill sets and like promote them and all that stuff. But I think it really, really comes down to just getting to know your people and having a relationship with them
Yeah.
outside of just being their boss and signing their checks. And I think that's also something that people have different opinions on, of like how far do you share
Yeah.
information with someone on your personal life. Even myself, like I share a lot, they share a lot. And I think that's a challenge that a lot of people are facing, is like how open are you with your team to kind of keep those boundaries of I am your boss, but I'm also like your friend, you know?
Yeah, no, I hired my best friend this year, and it's been a really interesting journey
Yeah.
because I still see her as my best friend, but then like I end up talking about work because I know she knows what's going on. So I mean, there's just a team of one, very different, but it is really challenging because I am very happy I hired. I don't want to say like internally, but like in my
Yeah.
inner circle, I'm really happy to have someone who touches, you know, my little baby,
Mhm.
my joy. Like I love my business. It doesn't run my life. It's not like my driver and everything I do, but like I fucking love my business and I care a
Yeah.
lot about it. I care a lot about my clients. And it makes me feel safe to have someone that I know who genuinely cared about me prior to the business in the business. But it is also very difficult because I want a personal relationship with her and I also want a business relationship, but I also like the expectations, like we're kind of figuring it out. We're 1 year into that journey. Happy anniversary, Lex, almost. But yeah, we're kind of like figuring that out. And it is really difficult because like I care so much about my business and I care so much about her. And every time you guys, I talk to Gabby about her team, it's like these people are your family. And I think that that's, if I had to say, like, that's how you look at your team.
Mhm.
Am I
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, no, we're 100. I always like to say, like, it's kind of like we're a family business. And like, that's actually literal too, because my mom and my cousin and my brother work for me. So like, we are, we are a family business, but like everyone else, I do see as family. Like, we call ourselves the AHA family. And like, we all genuinely care so much about each other and we know so much about each other. And like, I know people say it's really hard to find people who care about your business like you do, but I genuinely feel like all these people on my team care so much about the business and our clients. It's absolutely amazing to see the things that everyone will do for one another in any given scenario. And it's like, I truly look at my business every day and I'm like, I am so fucking lucky to have the team and the clients that we do because I know it's a really hard thing to have.
Yeah. So you're a fucking rock star. You have an incredible team. You have people who genuinely like, I've met part of Gabby's team. They are obsessed with her. Like they put her on that pedestal, very much well deserved. And they fight for you and they work hard for your clients. You have very long term clients. Like everything's going well. Where the fuck does the imposter syndrome come from, Gabby? Like where? And I know I'm saying that kind of in like, you know, a sarcastic tone because like I get the same questions. People are like, how? But
Mhm.
that's a lot of energy to carry. You have a lot of clients. You do a lot for those clients. You hold a lot of, I think, just desire to perform well for them and give them the results they're looking for. Like, but where does the imposter syndrome come from? Because you mentioned that right in the beginning. You're like, I have
Mhm.
a lot of imposter syndrome. My question, like, how? Like, just tell me where the fuck, Gabby?
No,
Tell me.
I know, it's confusing. It's confusing, and trust me, a lot of people ask me the same thing, but I honestly think it's and I don't know if it's imposter syndrome or if it's just like fear, just fear, period. I think that was my word of the year last year was fear. I think for me, I do hold a lot of responsibility. I mean, yes, like I said, I have my family hired under me. I have an incredible team that I don't want to lose. I have incredible clients that I don't want to lose. And so I think I just have a lot of fear that like if we become more successful, I'm not going to be able to enjoy any of that, and that's just real. Like it's a real thing that a lot of us go through that have a team is like you fear that you need to give it all to them because that's the only way that you're going to able to keep them. Right. And so, I have that bit of fear there. And then I think another one is just like, again, the responsibility, like say something does happen, that's going to fall on me. And so it just gets real, it puts a lot of pressure on yourself. And so I think that's where you'd think that it would drive you, and it will this year, it will drive me to do the things that I need to do. But I think for a little bit there, it definitely like scared me more because I was like, is this really like the responsibility I want to hold? You know what I mean? Like, and not that I ever doubted having an agency, but it's just like, holy shit, like I'm really holding on to this responsibility and like it is up to you. And like, a lot of the things when we're assessing the business is like it came down to marketing, you didn't show up, you didn't do this. And it's just like, it's so much you. So while you do have a team, it still stems from you being the face of the company. Like unless I was an e-commerce brand or something like that, it's a little bit different. But I think that also comes from it is just the pressure that I've put on myself, honestly, and just the pressure of owning a business in general, especially at the scale that we have it at. So I think that's where a lot of it stems from. And then, like I said, from my upbringing, when it comes to my relationship with one of my parents, like the whole money mindset, like that's something that I really have to work on. Is back then, when I was making money at like 14, I always was told like, don't forget, like I get a cut of that, like, or don't forget, you're gonna have to take care of me when I'm old, right? And so that's where a lot of this stems from. So I'm very aware of it now. That's a lot of the things that I worked on last year. So when I said what I said a few minutes ago about like, my fear of us making more money and having to give it away right away, that's where it stems from is my childhood. And so that's also where I hold myself back a lot because that's what I've known for so long since I was young. So it's not really, And also, I guess too, it's just like, again, I've been around for so long that I see some newcomers and they're so like just on it. And I love seeing their hunger for doing really well. And I'm just like, what am I doing? Like I've been here for a while and I'm not there. Right. So I think that's another thing is that back then, like especially when I was a freelancer, not a lot of people was doing this online business thing. And
Yeah.
now we're all online business owners. And it's insane to see how much it's grown since COVID. So I think for me, honestly, when I really look back on 2024, because this is something that I worked on a lot in 2024, was my imposter syndrome and just my fear of everything was just, I think I was so comfortable for so long because there wasn't a lot of noise. There wasn't a lot of competition back then. And now as the world has just changed and evolved, there is, and I haven't really changed who I am a lot since because it worked well. Like everything just kind of worked the way it did. And now it's like, no, you have to be a different person in order to get to a different place. And I think that really, really hit me this year that like you have to make some changes because yes, you got this far doing what you've done, but now you have to do this all over again, basically. Like we need to get back to that fire that we had when we first started the business. Like, you know, you can't get comfortable just because you've been doing it well for 4 years. You kind of have to re-trigger that hunger that you had in the beginning. And so I think that's really what's going on with me versus it being like true imposter syndrome or anything like that. It's more so just it's weird because it's like the fear of what you want, but also the desire to want that. Like it's such a conflicting thing.
Yep.
And I don't know if you've experienced it as well, but it's just like eventually you just kind of have to get over it though. Like you just have to push through it. You have to work through it because if not, you're going to continue to just get left behind and you're going to see the years pass by. I mean, look how fast 2024 went, right? So I think that's really I think maybe what a lot of people might experience nowadays too. Like you might think it's imposter syndrome, you might think it's, doubting yourself, but I think there's a lot of other layers that it could be that you need to have a moment to really like be aware of and reflect on as well.
Yeah, well, when you were talking, I was like flashing back to all these moments I've had with Gabby this year. So I did not even know Gabby like a year and a half ago. So I've seen Gabby really in this like tail end of what year 10ish, your 11
Mhm.
your business. And one of the things as you were talking about like needing to change and needing to evolve. But I was like in the back of my head, little therapist Ashley, I was like, but also I think you learned how to like take care of yourself. Like I
Yeah.
think you've been pouring into the business and pouring into your team and all those things are amazing. But as I've like thought about the last year and a half, I'm like, I've started to see you kind of release and like get
Mhm.
back to like just being proud of like who you are and what you've created and not feeling so much pressure to be like the superhero and to hold it all together. Like you've kind of released a lot in the last year. So I guess like in thinking through that and thinking through like, conversations that we've had, is there anything that you wish you would have done earlier in your business to prioritize yourself? Or in like looking back, do you feel like you did a good job of that? Do you feel like it just in due time just comes up where you just kind of all like I always felt like a stress vomit of like when you get through like all the craziness and you finally take a moment, it just kind of releases. I feel like that happened to me this year.
Yeah.
So that's what I guess I'm curious about for you because there's a lot of people watching who are probably listening, being like, how the fuck does she do this? And how does she stay so strong? And I'm like, you are so strong, but also this year, I feel like people need to like take that strength a little bit and be like, just be like, let me
Yeah.
just take it on. Like, let just be like, I don't even know if that's a question. I really want to talk about this year for you. Like,
Yeah,
that's
no,
what
this year was a big year of like, yeah, being a bit more selfish in regards to like personal development. And I think people think personal development is always to like, yes, it does get you forward in life for sure, but it's also about unpacking certain things that you've been procrastinating to unpack or like avoiding to unpack. So I think when I look at 2024, it really was the year to like really face the person in the mirror and like really understand like what is going on with me, because yeah, for a little bit I was like, oh, maybe it's the high of getting engaged, or maybe it's
yeah.
this, or maybe it's that. Like I made all these excuses as to why I was feeling a little off. And
Mhm.
it's a really hard feeling to describe, but you feel like it's not that you're unmotivated, but you're just like frozen almost, like you're kind of paralyzed in like what's going on, what do I do, what's the next step, like you're kind of just, again, like it's kind of like a comfortable stage and you don't really have that fire to like move forward. You're like, as long as I sustain where I'm at, like I'm good. And that's not a good thing to have when, you're still a small business and someone that wants to continue to grow. Right. But I think for me, I really had to, one, unpack a lot of the fears that I was like holding inside and like understand like what that really meant and where it stemmed from and how I'm going to face it going forward. I think number two is just like, yeah, giving myself more credit than I do. And really like instead of always thinking forward, kind of looking back a bit of like how far you've come. I think we all fail to do that, is to like look back at how far we've come and like all the things that we have overcome, all the things that we have accomplished. And I think that's a really important thing to like actually take the time to do that. And I think too is just like communicating that more to the team has been really helpful for me too, to say, hey guys, like I know I'm supposed to be this like you said, strong, keep everyone together, care about everybody else, be the one that's there for you if you need me. But like I just want to let you know, like this is also what I'm going through and like what I'm working on. So if I don't have the answers or if I don't have the clarity that you guys are looking for, like this is why. And so I think that was really helpful for me too, to like really go through this like personal year that I have gone through. And also communicating that to my support system on the personal side. So, my fiance, my family, everyone like that. It's really hard to battle these things alone. So I think the more that I've been able to talk about it with those who have helped me get through it, or those who are just supporting me in it, or those who are going to be just around me all the time, aka my team and my clients, I think that's really just helped me give myself the space to like give myself space to work through it, where I don't think we do that often enough. We give space for everybody else and anything else, but not so much for ourselves. So I think this year, it really was like I guess a wake up call for me that like if I want to continue this and build the life that I want for myself, for my team, for the clients, I have to be able to do some of these things in regards to adjusting the way that I think, adjusting the way that I structure my day and all these things, and that bleeds into everybody else too. And I love that the team is also kind of incorporating some of the new things that I did this year as well. But yeah, I think to kind of close up what I was just saying is I think that there just comes a point in time, and I don't think it's the same for everybody, because like I said, for me, it's 4 years into the agency that it's really hitting me that like, okay, it's time to really assess certain things that you've been thinking and feeling, but like have been avoiding. You'll just kind of know when it's time to face it. And I think that for me, how that really worked this year was I just allowed it to be. Like I allowed that to happen. I allowed myself to hear things that I probably didn't want to hear. I allowed myself to try things that I didn't want to try. And I think that's truly the only way that you're going to be able to change, or to like I said, be aware of what maybe something that you might want to work on even just a little bit. And so yeah, that's kind of how it was for me this year in regards to my own personal development.
Well, yeah, I'm like thinking about like asking. I was like, I really want to ask her about this year, but I'm also like, I feel like it's this. I'm like, it's funny because as I'm talking to you, I'm like, my brain is also focusing on these moments in time that I've had with you in this last year. Because Gabby and I've talked personally and professionally and been in person and all this stuff. And I actually want to go back to this moment. I think I told you this, but I don't know if I did. So Gabby and I this summer, this all ties back, I swear, but we were like, we were meeting. And this summer, I think I was at this point, and I'm a lot newer in business. This is year 2, going on year 3. We're about to start year 3. And I remember like going and I'm meeting with Gabby and like 2 other big business owners. I mean, been around for 6 years, 7 years, 7 figures, big teams, like whatever. And I'm like, team of 1, 2 years in. And I remember I went to this like event and there's like 4 or 5 people there. And Gabby was there. And I was like, oh my gosh, I like get to spend time with Gabby. She's so cool, like whatever. And I was asking about your business and you're like, yeah, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm struggling. And I literally went into my room and I started to like freak out. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to fail. Cause I'm like, if Gabby's stressing, like I have no fucking chance. And that's why, like, as I'm asking you questions, I'm like, I don't even know what question I'm really asking, because like, I feel so like close to you personally and just like experiencing this year. And again, not in so much depth, but in these like micro moments of when I saw you back in September, I was like, who the fuck is this bitch? I was like, it was 3 months ago that you were really like questioning yourself and your business and feeling lost. And then I see you 3 months ago and we're sitting in this group. And every time Gabby speaks, I'm like, who, like, what is happening? Like, you just felt like so confident and so strong. And so can you talk to me a little bit about those 3 months specifically? And I know it wasn't necessarily anything that might've happened in that time, but I felt like there was this release that happened. And then you just kind of, you just like kind of came back to like, all right, I got this. I'm reset. I'm refocused. Was it conversations? Was it mentorship? Was it just being present with yourself? Was it having people ask you the tough questions? Like, what shifted for you so much this year? I know you talked about it a little bit, but I really feel like there's kind of you like it was like you made a choice. You were literally
Yeah.
were like, I'm making a choice to be at a new level and to embrace what I know I need to do. So like I just want to hear about that because I think a lot of people are facing that right now, like a ton.
Yeah. I think number one, I think us talking that we did this summer, I think, and you can obviously that you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it just shows perspective that no matter how long you've been in the game, you'll still feel the same things that you felt when you were in year one or year two. But furthermore, I didn't feel any of these things in year one or year two. I was on a fucking high in year one, two, three.
As
Like
anyone.
nothing was going wrong. Everything was going great. Everything, you know what I mean? Like that's also a normal feeling too, that if in the first 2 years you don't experience a whole lot of like big moments like I had this year where you're like, what the fuck am I doing? Like we all have those what the fuck moments, but like sometimes you have like those big ones. And so I think it's important to normalize that no matter how long anyone's been in business or how new someone is in business, we can all experience similar things, different things at different times, and that's just our journey. That's just something that's meant for us. I'm a big believer that like every season has a reason, and that like everything happens for us and not to us. And I think it's just such an important way to look at life because it's so easy to get caught up in like comparing to others and everything like that, especially in business. And so I think that's number one that I really wanted to just kind of highlight on everything that you've been saying lately is just that like it's so interesting and cool in a way and intimidating at the same time that like people that you think have it like don't feel certain things or aren't going through certain things or like you're like, oh, but like I'm going through that right now, but like she's going through that later on, like all these thoughts, it's all different to each person. And so I think that's very important to for listeners to remember is that we don't all have the same blueprint in our business. And as much as you hire mentors and talk to friends and talk to people in similar industries, you're all going to be fucking different. Like it's just that's the way it is. And I think the most valuable thing that you can take from meeting certain people is finding a way of how you can apply that once you reach a certain situation in your life or in your business, that you want to remember that conversation you had with Gabs or with Ashley or whatever and say, I remember that's how so and so said that they faced it. So now I can apply that now that I'm in this scenario. Right. So that's something that I wanted to add to that. But to go back to your question on, what really changed from July to September when we saw each other the first time to the second time, I think it's actually applying myself to the things that people were telling me, whether that's my mentor and best friend, Kate, whether that's those that were around me, in July, including yourself, or whether that's, my family and my fiance that I was talking to everything about it, or my friends. I think the problem is we all like to talk so fucking much and like to get so much advice, but we don't apply ourselves. And that's the biggest problem when you're trying to overcome certain issues or situations you're in, is like, you are the problem. And that is something that really I said to myself many, many times in the mirror is like, you are the fucking problem. You are the bottleneck. You are the person choosing not to do certain things that you have to do. And when you really think about the fact that you are the one holding yourself back, holding your team back, holding your family back, holding your friends back, holding your clients back, that's a hard one to really swallow, that you are the problem. And I think it's something that you can joke about, like, I'm the problem, but like, truly, like, when you really think about the future and where you see your life and where you see the life that you want others to have, whether that's your parents, your friends, your family, whatever, and you realize that you could literally alter that, but you're choosing not to because you're scared of what people are going to say, you're scared of what will happen or not happen. Like, it's like, that's what life is about, is just taking chances, taking risks, trying things out. And if it doesn't work out, you most likely learn something from it. So it's not like a total loss. Like, yeah, some things are a harder hit than others, but you still learn something from it. Like my hardest challenges in business, yes, they fucking tore me apart, and they absolutely were the most painful things. But without those things, I wouldn't be as wise as I am today about those certain kind of situations that I face now. So I think that was a big turning point for me, was realizing that it literally comes from me. People can tell me the same thing 10 different ways, but at the end of the day, if I don't do something about it, I'm going to continue hearing it. And quite frankly, I even said this I went to another conference in December. And funny enough, I was hearing the same things that I had heard in July, that I heard in September. And these people don't know each other. Like, they're not in the same like bubble, essentially. So there's no way they like were at the same mentorship or whatever. So for me at the end of the year, and I love that it was in December, I was like, you are hearing the same things again. So fucking do something about it, because you are not going to go to another retreat, another conference, another fucking podcast and hear the same things and expect something to change. It comes down to you applying what you're hearing and what you're understanding. And so for me, that was really the turning point, was that like, you can talk and listen all you want, but it's not going to change unless you do something about it.
Yeah. So what in 2025 are you going to do? Like, what are the actions? What are the things you keep hearing that you're going to do? And what are those areas? And then where are the areas that you're going to give yourself grace on?
I think the areas that I need to just do things is to go back to business is marketing. That's my biggest fear, is like showing up on stories and talking about what we do and
What?
talking about, I know, but yet on my personal Instagram, I can talk all day about Amazon, activewear, all the
Oh
fucking
my
things. Trust me,
God.
I know it's fucking weird. But no, truly, it's me showing up more and just talking more confidently about what we do, because I think I'm doing my agency and my team a disservice of not talking about all the awesome shit that we do and things that we do incredibly well. So that's like an actual action item that I'm doing differently for 2025. And I think just like actually doing the things that I say I will, and like again, actually taking action is my biggest thing. So whether that's, wanting to do a freebie, or whether that's going on a podcast, or wanting to do a live event, like whatever, like go apply, then go reach out, go DM, go do something. Don't just keep talking about it. So those are some actionable things that I'm going to do, but I'm also going to continue to do certain things that really changed the team culture and really changed my outlook on business and in life into 2025 as well. So while a lot of people are all about like leaving things behind in 2024, I do think that there's some things in 2024 that need to carry over into 2025. So those are some things that I'm going to do there. In regards to give myself grace on, I think it's that like I don't deserve good things is the biggest thing. I don't even know if that's something that would answer that question, but I think I need to work on giving myself grace, that like I also am deserving, as much as my team is, as much as my clients are, as much as my family is. Like I also am too, and not to feel guilty about it, because I think for me, because I have a team, I'm like, oh, like my team's working hard, but I'm like, do I work hard? Am I working hard? Do I deserve it too? Like, did I work hard enough for it? But it's like, yes, you fucking do. It's just in a different way than it used to be when you were doing the video editing, the graphic design, whatever that might be, right? So I think for me, it's just knowing that even though my role is not a doing task, it's still as deserving as it is for everybody else. And so I think that's what I'll give myself more grace on this year.
Well, it's exactly like you said. There's what did you say? A reason for each
A
season.
season for every there's a reason for every season.
No,
Yeah.
that's good. Well, when you said that, I was like, I need to like write that down right after this episode, because one of the things I always say to business owners when they come to me is there's seasons of momentum, and then there's seasons of structure. Now, in seasons of structure, doesn't mean momentum can't continue, but you have to kind of create the momentum. And then as the momentum continues, you can add structure in it. So it's like you market. Okay, great. Now that I have marketing down, I'm getting consistent inquiries. How can I improve my lead gen process so I'm not touching every button when people are inquiring? Or how do I improve my marketing process so I can repurpose? Like, right? Like there's seasons of let's hustle, and then there's seasons of structure. And sometimes with a team, and again, I don't have a massive team, but I've worked with massive teams. Sometimes our job is to create the team that can continue the momentum so that we can add structure so the team's momentum has bigger impact. And I feel like you're in a season right now, thinking about where you were this summer, and even myself in the summer, I kept thinking every season has to be momentum. Every season has to be, I did 500K last year, so now I need to do 1.2 million. And now this I need to do 3.5 and all this shit, because we see people always talking about more revenue. But there's actually a point in business where your revenue and your output do not equal each other. So you might be 2 million, but you're actually working 10 times harder than you were working at 800K. So it's like, do you actually want that? Or would you rather just make 800K, have a team of one, and not have any expense? Like there's literally so many different ways to scale a business. And I like just want to hit on that, because as you were talking, I'm also hearing you talk a little bit about just like your belief of what the business needs to be is not always we have to do more. It's like, what are the things that are going to move the needle most intentionally for our team? And it's like, you've built this powerhouse. So now you're back in momentum mode because you've built the structure, I feel like, over the last couple of years. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to be chasing like more income. Like,
Yeah. No, this year was definitely, and I like the way you structured that, like a momentum year versus like a restructuring year and all that stuff. And this year definitely was one of those, the way that we described it was like kind of like a slingshot. Like we had to kind of pull
mm,
back in order to catapult forward for this year. And I truly feel like it was so, so needed this year. So yes, while we didn't hit the revenue goals that we wanted to, we hit so many other things that we wanted to do, such as meeting in person for the first time. Like
yeah,
that was a totally different experience and stuff. But like, yeah, they're and it makes sense because like I said, we've been an agency for 4 years. So we were in momentum phase for so long that finally year 4 was kind of like, we're going into 5 years now, but we just had our 4th year birthday in December. But yeah, so like this year was really that year of like, okay, how do we refine and restructure everyone individually, but also our team and our business in order to catapult forward for the next, again, next 3 years or whatever that might be. Right. And so I really love that you highlighted that because I think it's really important that we acknowledge that that's what's going to happen and that's needed. Like, I don't know how much more to emphasize this, that it's so needed to have these kind of years that I did this year, because I truly think that while there's offers, pricing, systems, structures, automations, all the things that can grow your business,
mm-hmm.
this part that I did this year, which is the personal development, the communication, the restructuring, the listening, the all the things that we did this year, that is what's going to allow us to scale. Like I think growth and scaling are two very different things that people kind of like use together. And so I do want everyone to know that no matter what stage in business you are, that like you do need those I don't want to, and don't call it a slower season because it's more of just a different, it's just a different season that's needed to
Yeah,
be focused on something else.
yeah,
It's very, very needed, and do not resist it, because the more you resist it, the deeper it's going to be when it's time to actually face it. So I will say that like if you feel that happening, like just lean into it because it is very needed. And I honestly think that this year was that year for a lot of people. And I don't know if it's because we're all coming down from like the
the
impact that
COVID.
COVID had. So
Yeah,
like we're all like, holy shit, like it's normal life now. So I don't know. I just feel like it's interesting that a lot of people experience the same things as us this year. And I think for those who did not experience it yet, just be open to it, I think, is the biggest thing. Because honestly, while it was a very challenging year, it was one of the best years in the weirdest way, because now
yeah,
I feel so good, so light, so clear
yep,
going into 2025, but not even just 2025, but whatever other things are going to come my way in the next couple years even. And so yeah, I think it's the journey of owning a business too. I think that when I first started business, I was like, where's this rule book? Where's this handbook or like blueprint of people telling me what's going to happen and all these things? And as I continue to be in business, there is none. And as much as you think that this is your path, it changes. It changes all the time. But you can continue to apply the same principles that you always believe in and have and understand, no matter what other direction that your map is going to take you. And so I think it's very important that you hold on to a lot of those important lessons
yeah,
and values and beliefs that you have, because they can all be applied to different scenarios, and they should be. And I mean, if you can hold those very strongly, you'll be able to face a lot of challenges that will come your way, because inevitably they are going to come your way, as much as the celebration and good times are going to come too. But I think it's just important that you hold on to those values and beliefs and the lessons that you learn, so that you know how to face them in a very manageable way as well, because they can make or break you, for sure. But you're never given a challenge that you can't handle. I strongly believe that.
yeah. Well, you can't say it more beautifully said than that. And I think it's like a testament too of how much business experience, like when you talk, you can tell that you're thinking about all these like kind of different phases of your business. And there's been some in that momentum bucket of like hustle. Like I feel like you did that in the beginning. And then
Mhm.
the last couple of years, I think have been more structuring. It's been putting together your team, getting systems in place, figuring out what type of cadence works to connect with your team, get to know them. And I think it's why you're going to have an incredible like next couple years. So the last thing I want to ask you, because you said in the beginning, we all hate knowing or answering the question to like, what's the 5 year or the 10 year plan? But assuming everything works out perfectly, which it never does, but if it did, where is your agency going to be in 5 years? Do you have the agency? Are you doing personal? Are you traveling? Like kids, family. I know you're getting married next year, right? Next January.
Yeah, I get to finally say next year. I
Gabby is
know, it's crazy.
diva. We always like joke about her Crocs and stuff. And Gabby always with the long fingernails. She's going to be divalicious on her fucking wedding day. What's the 5-year vision, Gabby? Give it to us so I can go back in 5 years and see how.
I think for me, the agency is going to be absolutely thriving with the team we have and maybe 2 or 3 more people. I will be in my forever home. I'm hoping I'll be married. Have 2 kids. My grandparents will be healthy and still around. And everyone on the team will be thriving in their lives too, as well as the clients. Like truly, as you can tell, I can never just say, what does my life look like? It's like, what does the team's life look like as well? Like, it's never just me. But no, truly, honestly, I also want to be able to look back, like 5 years from now, I want to look back and say, she fucking got over it and she did it. And this is why we're here today. And truly, if I can do that in 5 years, I will be so happy. But no, honestly, I feel like where I want my future to be is just to be healthy, wealthy, happy, and successful. That's all I want in my life.
And as sassy and beautiful and creative and amazing as she is to this day. I love it, Gab. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
Of course, for anyone who wants to find you, I think it's very evident from this episode how much you care about your clients, how much you care about your team. So I'm sure some people are going to want to learn a little bit more about your agency after this. Where can they find you? Where they can then they connect with you?
Yeah, so we're on Instagram. I feel like we didn't even say the name of the agency this whole time, but it's Assist Her Agency. Does not mean we don't work with male clients. It's just Assist Her Agency just sounded so beautiful. So Assist Her Agency on Instagram is our Instagram. We also have a website. And then I do have my personal account, which is where you can find more of the influencer side of me, which is Gabrielle T. Tongol. There's going to be a lot of bridal era there right now. So just warning you right now, if you're not into that, you want to just follow a sister agency. But yeah, that's where everyone can find us.
I love it. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thanks for your vulnerability. Thanks for giving us lots of lessons. I feel like I was like living vicariously through you, through everything you said. So I appreciate
Thanks for having me.
Soon. Bye. Guys.